Hello and welcome to Going for Two, where we never kick the extra point. And today we're going to do a review of Week 15 in the National Football League. To start off, we have the Thursday night game between the Los Angeles Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs, and this game was a wild one. There were a lot of things to take from this game, but we're going to start with some of the early ones. Andy Reid continues his yearly tradition of taking his foot off the gas at the end of the season. Andy Reid is a great football coach. I'm not disputing that, but his track record shows that he doesn't seem to be able to finish the job. All those NFC Championship games, one Super Bowl appearance, where he lost to the Patriots. It's not ideal. The Chiefs' tenure hasn't been great either. Look at that big lead they lost to the Colts. I believe it was 38-10, something like that, just some absurdly high number. That's not okay. Last year, against the Titans, when they looked really good, blew a 21-point lead. That team was 5-0 to start the year. Ace Smitty hadn't thrown a single interception. The Chiefs fade away down the stretch under Andy Reid. I thought maybe this year would be the outlier because of how well Mahomes played at the beginning. But the Chiefs are kind of reining it back in again. Last week, it took them a long, long time to beat the Ravens. That's not good. This week, they blew a 14-point lead in the fourth. That can't happen. On the other hand, the Chargers took a massive step toward winning a division that we never thought they had a chance to do. They've played well all year, that's certainly true, but I don't feel like anybody really thought anybody in the AFC at all, let alone in their division, would be a threat to the Chiefs, but that's not the case anymore. The Chiefs look good. And more importantly, the Chargers have become the first ever official team of the week here at Kickoff Commentary for going for two to win the game. Now, I didn't think this show would make an impact this quickly, but I'm glad to be proven wrong. Thank you, Anthony Lynn. Thank you, Los Angeles. It was a good win. Good luck to you guys in the future, as long as it's not against my Dallas Cowboys. Moving onward, we had a little Saturday football this weekend in the NFL, a bit of an outlier that we always have in December. And the first game was the Texans defeating the Jets 29-22. This was a big win for the Texans, keeps them well ahead of the Titans and Colts, who both won this week, although we'll get to those games later, as they look to be able to drift into the playoffs easily, and they'd have a shot at the bye week due to another game that happened later. The Jets, not a threat this year, obviously. Rookie quarterback, kind of a thinner roster. The Jets are trending upward, I think. The question is, will Todd Bowles be the coach next year? I'm not entirely sure. Admittedly, I've not been super close to the Jets situation to know if Bowles has been great or not. Darnold seems like a talented player, although I don't feel like he has nearly enough help for us to judge him super fairly so far. But the Jets have, I feel like, been a competitive team for most of these games, so that's always something good to see. And obviously the Texans, Deshaun Watson, the kids get some of that clutch gene. Another close win here for the Texans. They look good. If that loss last week against the Colts made a bit of a wake-up call, maybe they're going to get headed in the right direction right for the playoffs. I admit, personally, I was really annoyed at the preseason hype for Deshaun Watson. He got a lot of it. He was even called the best quarterback in the NFL 25 rounder. Over Dak Prescott, that annoyed me. But this season, as much as it pains me to say at times, he's proven it. The Texans are a good team, heating up at the right time. The other Saturday game we had was the Broncos and the Browns. This was a fun one here, as Denver continues their unfortunate losing streak at the absolute worst time to knock themselves out of the playoffs. This game would have given the Browns a shot to actually make the playoffs. Unfortunately, some games that happened in their division later on in the week would kind of kill their odds, but they still technically have a chance. It will require a tie in Week 17, but hey, we've had more ties in the NFL this season than we almost ever do, so maybe Cleveland shouldn't give up yet. But Baker Mayfield continues to make the Browns a much better team than they've been in my lifetime. That's out of 2007, the outlier, and I believe 2002 they made the playoffs. But those are two aberrations of what has been a rough go since 1999. Baker Mayfield is taking the Browns in the right direction, and I hope he continues to do so. I'd like to see the Browns be good. I certainly have no problem with them. I find anyone who really has a problem with the Browns should either be Browns fans who are annoyed at them or teams in their division who just have this weird hatred of a team that hasn't really been a problem. But good on the Browns for the win there. Denver, it's hard to say. The defense, so good. It's just they can't really seem to put it together. Vance Joseph, clearly, in my opinion, is not the answer. They need to move on from him. Case Keenum, it felt like a risk to me to give him the contract after one good season in Minnesota with a ton of talent around him and a great coaching staff. And it hasn't really worked out. Denver hasn't been awful. Philip Lindsay obviously has been a great bright spot, but I just feel like Denver is not in a place to compete right now. Their roster kind of sits in the middle of the road. I don't feel like they have a chance to beat a team like the Patriots, even though they haven't played as well like the Patriots. But, I don't feel like they're probably a top 10 team in the AFC. I'd have to think about it, obviously, but I don't know. Maybe it's time for a full rebuild. It's hard to say when a player like Von Miller is on the roster, but Denver is not in a good spot. The worst place you can be in the NFL is down the middle. The Cowboys showed me that from 2011 through 2013 with those 8-8 seasons. Denver's headed for something similar to that this year. Can they get out of this rut next season? Maybe. But for this season, it's kind of a wash. Moving on to the Sunday game, the Atlanta Falcons destroyed the Arizona Cardinals 40-14. This was just kind of a drubbing. Two teams that aren't in playoff contention. Atlanta has a decent roster. The Cardinals are obviously very, very thin, led by a rookie quarterback. This game really went the way that most would probably expect. Shout out to the Cardinals for trying here, but the Falcons were the better team, and it clearly showed. Not much else to say. Atlanta is confusing to me. They have what I feel like is a really talented roster. Matt Ryan is a good quarterback with a lot of good receivers. Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu, Calvin Ridley. You'd be hard-pressed to find a much better three receivers than that. Two good running backs. I'm fairly certain that Devonta Freeman is injured, but Tevin Coleman is still very serviceable, very talented. The defense, when it's not injured, which it was this year, is pretty solid. I mean, they won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and they've added Calvin Ridley since then. Some of it could be coaching, maybe. I'm not sure. The Falcons just haven't really seemed to be the team they were after the 28-3 Super Bowl lead blow. And I hate to bring that up, Falcons fans, but it really seems to be the moment where this team just regressed completely. And I feel bad for them because they really do have a talented roster. Maybe their Super Bowl window won't line up again for Matt Ryan's sake. Well, I want to say I hope somebody's in the NFC, but I don't know. The Falcons are a team that could always bounce back because of how much talent they have. Time will tell. This season didn't go how they wanted to, but, Matt Ryan's not over the hill yet. Maybe they can reload and make a run next season. On the next game, we had the Bengals play the Raiders, another game between two teams that aren't really playoff relevant. The Raiders took the loss here 30-16 to Cincinnati. Oakland, this is probably the outcome that they needed most here, just to get for the higher draft pick here, maybe some confidence boosters, I guess. Anybody on that Oakland team is going to be playing for their jobs at this point because they were obviously not a good team at any point this season. The win against the Steelers notwithstanding, Derek Carr, he plays really hard for a guy that just has had no help. Well, he's only really had help for very short stretches of his career in Oakland. So time will tell how that goes for him. But as far as the Bengals, though, the real question is Marvin Lewis. Is it time for him to go? I would wager the answer was yes 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe even, before that. Marvin Lewis did take a bad Bengals team in the 90s, a really bad team. He made them better. But at a certain point, coaches that don't win have to wear out their welcome. Marvin Lewis has been the coach of the Bengals since Kobe and Shaq were teammates. He has still yet to win a playoff game. I respect what he's done for the Bengals. He made them better, but it's time for him to go. At a certain point, say it any number of ways, a coach loses it as far as the locker room, as far as being able to win. I think that time has come and gone in Cincinnati. A.J. Green and Andy Dalton are in their 30s now. That's insane to think about. And their whole career, they've been coached by the same guy, getting them the same results. I think Cincinnati should move on. But if they move on to Hugh Jackson, like some think they might, then you know what? Marvin Lewis may deserve another year in Cincinnati. After this, we had the Miami Dolphins getting absolutely destroyed by the Minnesota Vikings, 41-17. This was an interesting game because the Vikings fired John DeFilippo, and I was somewhat critical of that move and the harshness with which Zimmer talked about DeFilippo after the firing, saying that he didn't want to waste the season. And it seems that I was completely and utterly wrong in my assessment of that move, as the Vikings scored 41 points and beat the Dolphins 41-17. Now, the Dolphins, this hurts their playoff chances. I'm not sure if it eliminates them, but this was definitely not a loss they wanted to take, especially with some of the other games that happened in the NFL. The Vikings had to have this to keep their playoff hopes alive. John DeFilippo is gone, and the Vikings immediately scored a lot more points on offense than they had in previous weeks. The next game we cover, if a certain other team would do the same, I think the results, maybe not 41 points, but they will be so much better than they are right now on offense, it's actually a joke. But to the Vikings, hats off to them. They are an incredibly talented football team with what I believe is a very, very good head coach in Mike Zimmer. And if firing DeFilippo got that offense moving the way it is right now, the Vikings could be a team nobody wants to play come the playoffs. Moving on to the game that I certainly had the most invested in, the Dallas Cowboys against the Indianapolis Colts. And this game was obviously, as a fan of the Cowboys, absolutely disgusting. I'm not really sure what a Marlon Mack is. I know he's running back for the Colts, but I wasn't aware of Barry Sanders incarnate. At least he looked that way from how badly our run defense played against him this week. It was such an outlier and strange game for this Cowboys team. The offense was pretty dominant with ball control in the first half and had several good drives. It's just so many little things that this team didn't get right. The Brett Maher field goal that got blocked, right before that, on 3rd and 1, or maybe it was 2nd and 1, pardon me, the team just sort of put like everybody on the line, and the Colts clearly were ready for it. They stacked line of scrimmage, and they just sort of ran it right up the middle, and it didn't work. And then on 3rd down, I believe it was, Dak had Allen Hurns, and Allen Hurns did what he's done all season, not really go for the football, just sort of give up at the top of the route if the pass isn't perfect. Allen Hurns, it could just be me as a fan here. Obviously, I don't know what's going on there in the locker room, and I'm not going to get everything right, but he never really seems to finish routes. He always seems to get about 85% of the way there, and if the ball is not hitting him in the hands at that point, he just sort of seems to give up. Now, again, it could be outsiders looking in, it could be the passes aren't nearly as crisp as they should be, but Hurns has done anything but impress in Dallas so far this season. And after that, of course, we had the blocked field goal. The Colts ran that back for a touchdown, although Darius Leonard was down, and then they just drew down the field quickly, and it was 7-0. After that, Dallas goes all the way down the field, and then on 3rd and 1, Dak Prescott on the play action has Olawale wide open, and Olawale drops it. Michael Strahan said that Olawale needs to go in for an eye test, and I think I agree. I actually saw Cowboys fans judging Dak for this play, and it's further proof that our fan base is the absolute worst in the NFL. And that may not be true, but we're certainly not in the top 5. When players don't execute whatsoever, it's kind of hard for a quarterback to accomplish anything. Then on 4th and 1, on an obvious running situation, when the Colts were in an obvious run defense, we did an obvious handoff that the Colts stuffed out, obviously. Amazing. The team continued their woes of the first half, which was their woes of the entire game, and it was ugly. The Colts came out in the second half and ran through a Dallas team that simply wasn't ready. I'm not sure what happened with our defense here today. This is something that was actually confusing because the offense I have plenty to say about. They've been really, really good all year, the Cowboys defense. There wasn't really any games up to this point where I could say they've just looked completely lost out there. The way they got beat on runs made me think that something had been wrong. I was looking like hoping for holding calls or something on almost every play because it seemed so out of character for us to be that bad defending the run. Obviously, hats off to the Colts because they certainly just ran us through the meat grinder on offense there. Andrew Luck is the real deal for sure. As we all knew, though, I mean, Andrew Luck being great isn't exactly a surprise. I just am surprised how thoroughly they destroyed us on defense. On offense, well, if you've followed this channel whatsoever, you know there's 2 videos about what I think is wrong with the offense here, but so I'll keep it a bit more brief here. Scott Linehan is the worst offensive coordinator in football. He might be the worst offensive coordinator in football for the past 25 years. He was brought into coaching by the worst coach in Arkansas Razorbacks history, so he's pretty much the worst person as far as football, in my opinion, in football. I don't know Scott Linehan, the person. I don't want to attack him on those merits. He could be a really nice person, but as far as actually coaching football, I couldn't have made up a worse character for a football movie than how Scott Linehan is as a coach in real life. This is the only coach in the league who gives up the moment it is longer than 10 yards to get to the next first down. This guy on 4th downs is out here, and 3rd down and longs is running screens every single time. You shouldn't be able to call every 3rd down play, every 2nd down play, heck, even every 1st and long play from 15 miles out. It's the most predictable, vanilla play calling you'll ever see. And notice, the long touchdown last week against the Eagles that Dak had to Amari Cooper was because Amari noticed something and was all like, I keep running this route, Dak, let's go deep, let's do something different. And Dak decided to audible at the line of scrimmage into it. So it literally took players on the field going against what Linehan called to make something work. And I've seen conspiracy theorists out there saying this week the reason Amari Cooper wasn't a big part of the offense was because Linehan punished him for going against his play calling in like a visible way last week. Now, I'd like to think Scott Linehan isn't that petty, but we're talking about Scott Linehan here. This guy is not very good. It could be that he's that threatened. Now, my hope was that Jason Garrett would realize that he could probably save his job here if he untethered himself from this blithering idiot of a play caller. That hasn't happened yet. I'm holding out hope that cooler heads will prevail and sanity will reign. But as of right now, Scott Linehan still has a job, and that bothers me because Scott Linehan does not deserve to be the offensive coordinator of a team that's going to be in the playoffs. Just to briefly cover what I said yesterday in a video. Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, 8 seasons, 2 playoff appearances. Unbelievable. Linehan is the worst. We played like the worst team today. It was embarrassing. Thankfully, we're going to get a couple more shots on multiple different ways to still make the playoffs. I certainly want to see us get there. I mean, as upset as I was with the game, we're still in a pretty good spot here. The only thing that would really disappoint me is if we manage to completely screw this up. Tampa Bay, we can't look past the Buccaneers next week. We have to win that one. Let's just get it done, Cowboys. Let's go out there. Let's handle our business. Make the playoffs. And once we get to the playoffs, let's make this the season I'm hoping for. And if not, well, maybe it'll get Scott fired then. Although this guy survived the Cowboys' first shutout in 15 years, this guy's going to survive the apocalypse, I'm starting to think. But moving past that, the Baltimore Ravens beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 20-12 to keep their hope of winning the AFC North alive here. Tampa Bay has been the enigma of the NFL this season. I just don't understand it. They started off with Fitzpatrick. They scored all the points. Everybody was going crazy. Understandably so. It was amazing. Then they slowed down a little bit, and then they had the quarterback back and forth thing. And then they had the Redskins game where they had, 600 yards of offense and 3 points, 5 red zone trips with 3 points. It was insanity. This week the Ravens got up. Lamar Jackson continues to do what it takes to win. It's not the prettiest thing. But you know what? Sometimes Dak Prescott doesn't play pretty football when the Cowboys win. It doesn't matter how pretty the football is as long as you are a consistent winner, and Lamar Jackson seems to be so far. The Ravens didn't take the lead of the division because of the game that happened later, but this was still an important thing for them. They can still win that division if they finish strong and Pittsburgh stumbles a little bit. As far as Tampa Bay, I don't know. They had a rough season. They haven't gotten a lot of production out of their high rookies, Ronald Jones and Vita Vea, this season. I hope they can get it turned around because I don't really mind the Buccaneers. They're a fine team. They have a quarterback controversy, perhaps, for the upcoming offseason. We'll certainly see how that goes for them. After this, we had the Buffalo Bills defeat the Detroit Lions 14-13. Again, 2 teams that weren't really playoff relevant for this season. Neither one is really eligible. But it was an interesting game to see here for the Bills. Is the Bills were out there with a roster of guys that I probably won't know the name of. And I watch a lot of NFL football. But that kid, Josh Allen, he's got a little bit of the it factor, I feel like. He's a guy that does not want to lose a game. And it showed here. The Lions, it's unfortunate, man. Matthew Stafford is a really, really good quarterback. He's probably an elite quarterback if he plays anywhere else. He may still be an elite quarterback in Detroit, but he'll never get that recognition. This guy has one of the league's very few 5,000-yard seasons. That's not an easy thing to do. This guy has thrown for 4,000 yards for, I believe, 7 consecutive seasons heading this year. That's not easy to do, especially when he's had less than 10 100-yard rushers in his career. It's absolute insanity that Stafford gets this little help all over. Matt Patricia's trying to rebuild things there. I understand that. This year probably was unlikely to be a really big builder. We'll see how it goes long term, but I admit, I'm not a Lions fan per se, but I would like to see Matthew Stafford really get to put together one season where we get to see him play to his abilities. As far as the Bills, they've been interesting this season. They've got a bunch of really outlier wins, that game against the Vikings especially. But, Josh Allen, I think the Bills have something there. They can build around him. He could be a guy that gets... After this, we had a game that I was certainly happy to see the outcome of, I have to admit. The Bears defeated the Green Bay Packers 24-17. I try not to be petty here when talking, but Aaron Rodgers getting eliminated from the playoffs does put a smile on my face. I'm sorry, Packers fans out there. I will be unbiased as I can here. The Bears, they said they wanted to give one back to Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers' comeback in Week 1, and they certainly did, knocking Green Bay out of the playoffs entirely. To my knowledge, they may have some sort of obscure path, and the Bears have locked up the NFC North for the first time since 2010, so hats off to them. The Khalil Mack trade clearly paying dividends so far. Can Chicago go the distance? I don't see why any team that makes the playoffs this year can't go the distance because the league has been so wild. As far as Green Bay, new coach next year. I assume Joe Philbin won't keep the job. He might. But they're going to be in for a change here, something that Green Bay doesn't have all that often. They're very Steeler-esque in their consistency as an old organization. They need to get a guy that plays to Aaron's strengths that Aaron adores, because Rodgers, you don't want him getting kind of stubborn. You don't want him trying to go off and do his own thing all the time, Aaron clearly hasn't been super enthused this season. That's not great. And you have to surround him with talent. You've got a quarterback that is really, really good. Your strategy for 7 years now has been, let's see if Aaron can. Aaron is good. I don't know if Aaron is that good. Every single year, at least. Clearly, it's failed him this year that he couldn't cover every single problem that team has. Will he be able to recover in the future? I certainly hope not. Simply because I don't want to have to see the Packers. But if they get a team around him, Aaron Rodgers is a guy that you can never, ever count out. And so, good on him. If he can get doing good, more importantly, good on the Bears, they're going to be a big threat in the playoffs. I don't think any team wants to really play the Bears if they can avoid it. After this, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars losing to the Washington Redskins 16-13. Jacksonville, you let me down. You're going to let Josh Johnson, a guy that was drafted in 2008 and has probably thrown less than 8 passes so far since then, beat you and keep the Redskins' playoff hopes alive. This was the first of 2 games that made me really sweat the coming weeks in the NFL, but Jacksonville might be on pace to be one of the worst single turnarounds in league history. If Stephon Gilmore does not make an amazing pass deflection, like really impressive, against the Jaguars last AFC Championship, they probably go to the Super Bowl. There were other things that led up to that. In my opinion, they should have never punted in the fourth quarter in any of the times they had a fourth down. But that notwithstanding, this team is now on pace to be one of only 2 others, in addition to them, to get to the AFC Championship game or further, or NFC Championship, either championship game, sorry, and finish 4-12. The others were the Raiders after they lost the Super Bowl, and I believe the 2013 Falcons. This is rare for this to happen, and it's really surprising. They started off the season well. That Patriots game I thought was going to set the tone for them, but it really was just their Super Bowl. They got their win back, and they seem to be not able to do anything past that. I really don't know what you do beyond this point, other than I feel like you have to move on from Blake Bortles. That's still a very good defense. You should be able to win with it. Has Jalen Ramsey become a distraction? I don't know. I don't know the culture of the Jaguars, but it's certainly not been a good season for them. They just look completely washed, and I don't know if they can fix it. I mean, certainly they'll try because they have talent there, but maybe it'll be better next season, maybe not. Last year could be a complete outlier, though. They just timed it well, and they missed their shot. For the Jaguars' sake, I hope they do well, because someone's got to fill the Patriots' vacuum at some point, right? So why not the Jaguars? But it's not going to be this year. As far as the Redskins, I thought they were going to lose out after the injury, but they got a win here. Much needed. Josh Johnson, it's certainly a Cinderella story. The guy came out of the streets here, and he's going to be playing for a shot at the playoffs the next few weeks if Dallas doesn't win one of the next 2 games. Although, if that doesn't happen, then let's not think about if that doesn't happen. But, got to give the Redskins credit, as much as I hate to, that they are very much alive. Beyond this, an NFC East team that got knocked out of the playoffs was the Giants, who lost to the Titans 17-0. 2 teams in the NFC East got shut out this week. Normally that would make me happy, but we were one of them. So, never fun. The Titans continue to look good. If the Texans drop 2 in a row here, the Titans or the Colts, after their win, could probably take the division. I'm not sure the tiebreakers there, admittedly. But the Titans have looked better. Derrick Henry is finally playing like the guy I thought he could be coming out of Alabama. This year, it was interesting, because I thought his whole career so far at this point, why you got DeMarco? Let's get this guy as a big physical runner. Just let him get a ton of carries and just wear the other team down. He's 6'3". He's a massive individual. And then they got rid of DeMarco, and I was like, okay, here it is. Derrick Henry's going to have the whole thing, and they brought in Dion Lewis. I understand why. Not saying Dion's a bad player. I just didn't think that was going to jive with it. But he's looked great the past few weeks, and the Titans look strong. If they can keep this momentum at the right time, they're going to make the playoffs again. And like I said, I think any team can make some noise in the playoffs this year, simply because I don't think any team is an overwhelming favorite. Teams like the Saints and the Rams have looked good so far, but as we'll get to later, this don't look as steady as they did earlier. After this, we had the San Francisco 49ers defeat the Seattle Seahawks. And this is another game in the camp of, this is why you don't talk too much before a game. Frank Clark, defensive end of the Seahawks, went on a big spiel about Richard Sherman pregame, about how it was his defense now, all those things, and how that they're gonna have some fun. They're gonna be 2-0 against San Fran this year, and then the Niners beat them 26-23 in overtime. I'm gonna be honest here. This is unfair. The most I knew of Frank Clark to this point was that he was a decent pass rusher with a DV charge in the past. It could be his defense. I haven't watched enough Seattle football. Far be it from me to judge when I haven't been a bunch there. But I would personally assume it was probably Bobby Wagner's defense. But like I said, not a big Seattle guy. They're a good team. Although this could hurt their chances of making the playoffs here. And the 49ers clearly, Sherman especially, I imagine, wanted to play some spoiler here, and they got some revenge there. Although this is going to hurt their chances to get that number 1 overall pick. So we'll see how it works out for them. Seattle's path got a lot harder. They really didn't need to drop one to a team with Nick Mullins at quarterback and 10 losses, but they did. That's why you play the games any given Sunday. You know, all the cliches we always get told, that game is why we tell them. After this, we had the Steelers defeating the Patriots 17-10, and Tom Brady takes his 3rd career loss only against the Steelers, and the Steelers finally get some revenge for. Take your pick of which time they got beat by the Patriots here. They needed this one to stay ahead of the Ravens, and they did so. It will be a fun race here at the end of the season to see who gets that AFC North win spot. Pittsburgh, it's a win. It's 17 points with that offense. They don't look consistent. Pittsburgh could get into the playoffs. Obviously, they have a fairly notable path. The problem is I just don't know how much of a favorite they'll be. Like I said, obviously, any team, if they get there, has a chance. Pittsburgh just doesn't have, in my opinion, a great chance. We can see it. Big Ben is a 2-time champion. The guy knows how to win in big situations. The Steelers have got to get there, and they took a big step here. As far as the Patriots, this is interesting. I thought the Miami Miracle was just going to be a fluke. The Pats are the Pats. They're going to run through. That's 2 losses in a row. That's 5 losses total. They look mortal. It's almost like their quarterback is a 41-year-old man. Tom is Tom. Once the playoffs turn on, obviously, I don't think we're going to see any issues from the Patriots here. But this is something that we haven't seen from them since Brady hurt his knee and Matt Cassel's the quarterback. A Patriots team that you can't guarantee is going to be a win every week. Obviously, they lose with Tom sometimes. But this year, they've lost with Tom. It's the same wording, but it means a little different the way you say it. And as far as that, that's why the league is so wide open. Nobody, in my opinion, is the favorite. And nothing proves that more than our next game, the Sunday Night Football matchup. The Eagles defeating the Rams 30-23. Oh no, it's happening again. Nick Foles has stepped in during the Rams game again as the Eagles quarterback due to a Carson Wentz injury that will end his season to try to get the Eagles to the promised land. I said I wouldn't be biased here, but I have to for just a moment. Please don't let this happen again. But moving on from that, the Eagles, with a mash unit of a secondary, beat one of the best teams in the NFL all season. And again, any given Sunday, all season long. Anybody that is playoff eligible right now, I could see winning the Super Bowl because I don't think any team is a favorite. It's that simple. The Rams didn't really need this one. They're still, I believe, 11-3. They're going to be fine, at least getting the playoffs. So when they get there, time will tell. The Eagles had to have this one to stave off elimination, and they got it. Nick Foles did what he does best for the Eagles lately, and he wins when the game is on the line. That fumble by the Rams kick returner at the end was just rough. Really unfortunate. He didn't even get contacted. He just dropped it on that cut. Really must not have had a grip on the football. But hats off to the Eagles, as much as that hurts to say. They got it done, and they're alive. Dallas, let's make sure that I don't have to say that again next week. And then finally, last night, the Monday Night Football matchup, the New Orleans Saints defeated the Carolina Panthers 12-9. And much like the Rams, after that Cowboys game, like the Rams after their Bears game, the Saints have looked exposed lately. I mean, they won the past 2 games, obviously, but they were down 14-3 at halftime to Jameis and the Buccaneers, and they only scored 12 points on the Panthers, who are in an absolute tailspin right now. Also, we saw the second ever pick 2 in NFL history in this game, so there's your piece of history 99 yards back. The Saints, again, 12 points. This offense, people were saying this team looked unbeatable heading into that Dallas game. They were averaging, 40 points a game nearly, if not at least over 40 against the NFC East. And then the Cowboys just really locked in on a game plan there and shut them down. And since then, the Saints have not been the Saints we saw the first 10 weeks of the season or so. That's good for NFC East teams, NFC teams, but it's not great for the Saints themselves. They need to, if they want to make a long run this year, they've got to get this figured out. 12 points is not going to win you a lot of, if any, games in the playoffs. As far as the Panthers, well, there's not really much I have to say other than I don't know what's going on there. They're going to be the first team, if they lose out, the first team in league history to start 6-2 and finish 6-10. Cam Newton is clearly injured. He's not playing up to his ability because he's a very, very talented quarterback, and he's obviously not playing to his full ability here. But the Panthers, since the Super Bowl loss, again, much like the Falcons, have just not seemed to be the same team. I don't know if that was all they had. I mean, there's talent there. Christian McCaffrey is obviously an absolute beast of a running back, but we'll see. The Panthers obviously are out of it this season. Can they bounce back? Yeah. With a quarterback as good as Cam Newton, you can bounce back anytime. But they haven't been consistently good since that Super Bowl. Maybe they can fix it. I kind of like Cam Newton. He's I would argue, hot take time, I guess, that he is the most talented quarterback the NFL has ever seen. Now, hold on. Before you get your pitchforks out, he's not the best quarterback the NFL's ever seen, far from it. But I think he's the most talented in that there's never been a 6'6", like 260-pound mammoth of a quarterback who just goes out there and rips it. Cam is amazing. Like, unbelievably talented. One of the most talented quarterback I've ever seen. And when he got help in 2015, he went out there and he was the super Cam that he does when he gets to the end zone. Since then, we haven't much of that. The Panthers are fine, all right? They made the playoffs last year, but I don't know, they weren't super strong. Can they get back to 2015 level? I kind of hope so. I mean, obviously not if it's in the stake of my team in the way, but we'll see. Good on the Saints though. They got a much needed win to keep their momentum riding a little bit into the playoffs, and for the Panthers, well, at least they'll have a better draft pick. And that concludes episode number 3 of Going for 2. What do you think were the best performances of the week? What really surprised you? What didn't surprise you? What do you think of the playoffs? Who do you think is going to make a big push? Who do you think is going to falter? Do you think the Cowboys will win the NFC East, or do you think one of the other two will stun us here in the last few weeks? Let me know in the comments, and along with anything else that you may have to add. This has been Going for 2, and remember, never kick the extra point. Thanks for watching.